Well, okay, so today we're gonna make up a little egg bread so that we can show you multiple types of rolls and braiding of loaves. On your practical exam, you'll have to produce egg bread, a 4-strand loaf. So Chef Payne and I have already taken our yeast and we're activating it in water that's 105 to 110 degrees. I gave it a slight whisk. I did not over incorporate it because you want to be able to see these little colonies popping up in the water before you add your dry milk powder. So we've got some nice action that we're looking at. This is active dry yeast. I'm going to go on and hydrate my milk powder in my water and yeast. While I'm doing this, I'm going to cream my sugar with my fats. So there's butter and hydrogenated shortening in there. So we're going to get this creaming. So this is the modified straight dough method. It's used for enriched breads that have a high percentage of fat, sugar, and eggs. So we need to be able to incorporate them by creaming them. So we start with the paddle attachment, and we're creaming those. I'm just going to finish whisking up my liquid ingredients. And we have some bread flour and a little salt. So now that that has become incorporated and I no longer can see the difference in the sugar and the fats, I'm just going to slowly add my eggs. Now this is not going to emulsify, so don't worry. But we want to give these ingredients a chance to incorporate before we add a whole bunch of liquid and our yeast. Once I get this incorporated, and I know it's going to be lumpy, we're going to change to the hook, add our water, yeast, milk powder, dry ingredients, and I always add salt last when I'm making bread. I consider yeast the most important ingredient, and yeast needs moisture for fermentation. So I'm going to let the yeast have the moisture first, and then I'm going to separate the yeast from the salt by adding the flour next. So yeast is killed by two things: heat, 150 degrees, and direct contact with salt, because salt can dehydrate it. And if it loses all its moisture, it dies. So I'm going to add my hook, and I'm going to start this process. I'm going to start this process on relatively low speed. There are several things that happen before the dough comes together and forms gluten. This is called a pickup stage. The ingredients are all picking up. This type of a dough I call a straight dough because you can produce this bread from beginning to end without a pause. You can create it within about 4 or 5 hours. It's not like an artisan bread that requires a pre-ferment that can take up to 24 hours. Those are commercial pre-ferments also. The wild yeast pre-ferments can be held for years. So we've got our ingredients starting to pick up. And then I'm going to want them to clean up the bowl. I want them to entirely clean this bowl. Once I have it cleaned up, I'm going to look for it to turn from kind of a shaggy mass in the bowl to something that looks smooth. And that's my first indication of gluten. Once I see that, I'm going to take it to the bench and I'm going to hand knead it. I'm just going to take a quick pause. Now you'll see that the ingredients have started to pick up. Now I'm looking for it to clean the bowl. That means that none of this dough will stick to the bowl. If it does, don't panic. We'll just add a little flour to the bottom of this bowl and it'll pick right up. So the kneading action of the hook brings the dough up onto the hook and back down, up onto the hook and back down. bottom, but as gluten develops, it should pull that right off. It's going from a real shaggy mass to something a little smoother. And you can see it climbing up and down the hook. The hooks are designed to resemble the motion of hand kneading. This process, you need to remember, creates heat. So when you are reading about and learning about desired dough temperature, that friction factor needs to be incorporated. So I'm starting to look smooth in areas. I'm cleaning the bowl. I'm no longer sticking to the bowl. So I'm going to turn him off and I'm going to hand knead him. Here's a little tip that I think is helpful. If the dough does not stick to your bowl, it's not going to stick to your hand or the bench. So I do not like to put any flour on the bench unless I have a sticky dough. And even at that point, I'm real hesitant to do that. So I'm going to do a little hand kneading, and it's just a rhythmic process where I pull the top portion of the dough down over itself, give it a quarter turn, and repeat. So what I'm looking for is a real smooth consistency on the surface of this dough. And I've got some sort of crackly spots here, so I'm gonna keep kneading it. So I'm starting to get smooth. That's the first sign of gluten. When it starts to respond to me when I press it, that's my other sign. And to confirm it, you can always do the window pane test. So it's springing back as I'm pressing it, so that's a good sign. And with a dough that's enriched like this, where there's fats and sugars and eggs, things that want to tear down gluten, you want to be gentle when you're kneading it. So if I'm pushing this hard, I'm going to be tearing this gluten instead of encouraging it. So I want a real nice, gentle kneading. So once I get this kneaded, I'm going to put it in a grease bowl, and we're going to let it ferment overnight in the cooler. So that's called cold fermentation, or retarding your dough. If we were going to push this straight through, we'd go into the proofer to the fermentation step. So now I've got this nice smooth skin. It's responding to my touch, so I know I'm ready to go into my bowl. And I'm gonna New York wrap my bowl, so I wanna make sure everybody knows how to do that. In this lab, I New York wrap everything, and that means that you're wrapping it from the bottom up. So get yourself a nice space on your bench, put your bowl or your sheet tray on top of it, and then just a little quick wrap. If it doesn't cover it, feel free to give it another wrap. I call that a double New York wrap. And that is egg bread, and we'll turn that egg bread into a lot of rolls and some braids tomorrow.